But just fill in a lot of what you report here about how this note came to be.
Well, the note came to be, and you described it accurately, kind of as a report of some issues that analysts found with the earlier Russia election assessment, because John Ratcliffe, the CIA director, ordered analysts to write it back in May, essentially saying to them, all right, I'm tasking you to go look at this assessment and pay particular attention to a key judgment that was made back in 2016, which was that the Russian government aspired, that was the word, to help Donald Trump get elected, which is an issue that John Ratcliffe has been asked about many times in the past, whether he agrees with that assessment, and has notably never said whether he does or doesn't. So the context in which this tradecraft assessment is created is because the director, this politically appointed official, is telling the career analysts to go write about it. And we should also note, and I noted this in my story yesterday from a statement from Jim Clapper, it's highly unusual to order a review like this for a document that by now is 8 going on 9 years old. So it's not entirely clear what Ratcliffe said to these analysts, like why he wanted it done, but the clear direction from him came in May, and the analysts then dutifully wrote the report.
So he asks for a review of the Intel assessment from 2016, and what the analysts give back to Mr. Ratcliffe is more confirmation about the integrity of the intelligence itself. But then is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. The document essentially validates all the original findings. It takes issue with some of the process, but it does not overturn the earlier assessment.
So this is year 9. This is, I think, the third person to run the CIA. I read from Danielle Sassoon, the former prosecutor from SDNY's deputy, who, when he resigned, said, you may find someone foolish enough or cowardly enough to do the things you want me to do. He was speaking about Emile Bobe. But is it your sense that what Ratcliffe got these folks to do was to reassess the assessment, and they affirmed the actual intelligence? We'll deal with the process in a second. I just want to make sure I understand that even this, I don't know, 4th CIA director coming in Trump's second term, making these folks do something that you describe reads like the written version of a hostage video, also affirmed the assessment about Russia.
Yeah, that's right. They said essentially this is a quality assessment, and it did not come in and overturn the findings. And notably, it did not do the things that John Ratcliffe then publicly claimed that it did. He said in a tweet that John Brennan, Jim Clapper, and James Comey, the former FBI director, had, his words, manipulated intelligence in order to get Trump. The document doesn't say anything like that. It doesn't talk about silencing career professionals, as the CIA director claimed. I mean, I don't think you can even say that he's exaggerating or giving a tendentious reading of the document. It just literally doesn't say any of those things, which is, you know, a very surprising thing that he would claim that it does, when anyone can go read these 8 pages for themselves. It'll take you 10 minutes and see that it doesn't say what he's saying. So, you know, I think we're left to presume, you know, did the assessment come back and not make the director happy? Did he think he would find something else? Because he's not accurately portraying what his own analysts at his direction told him.
So let's stop right here. I mean, Andrew Weissmann, if there's a theme this week, it's all of the eggs that have been sacrificed to soak the faces of the Trump cabinet. This is, at the core, at the substance, egg on Ratcliffe's face, which is why he sends out a tweet misrepresenting, distorting, I will use the word lying, about what his own CIA note assesses. What are your thoughts about that as just a basic fundamental fact about what gets sent over to DOJ and puts other things in motion?
I think if you step back for a moment and you connect what you're talking about with John Ratcliffe and your discussion and the clips you played with Pam Bondi, you really have here the confrontation of people publicly saying things that are not true, and the fact that people who are sort of career people, or if you were to bring a case, you actually have to have facts. And that's why Pam Bondi may publicly say all sorts of things about Jeffrey Epstein or anybody. Then you could have the president saying that. You could have the press secretary saying it. But, you know, in a court of law, or if you have career people, they're actually looking at actual facts. And that's why Shane is saying, if you actually look at the hard evidence, it just doesn't support what is being just, you know, spouted, but with no repercussions, just publicly said. And I just can't help but saying this is such a surreal conversation because, yes, this is what the CIA report says, but it's not just in black and white in the CIA report. It was in black and white in the Mueller investigation. It's in black and white in two indictments. You can read the emails and text exchanges and the hard evidence from the St. Petersburg, Russia Internet Research Group plotting to help Donald Trump win the election. That doesn't mean Donald Trump was complicit in it, but there is just no question that that's what's going on. And as you noted, Nicole, yesterday, one of the key pieces of evidence here is a Senate report that Marco Rubio is a signatory on, finding the exact same thing. So this is not an open question. This isn't where you say, Lee, gee, the two people could have different views. There is only one set of facts, unless you are just publicly going on air and saying something that isn't true.
Shane, your reporting takes the reader through what Andrew's talking about, the exhaustive bipartisan work product of the Senate Intelligence Committee, which I actually think, no disrespect to Andrew Weissmann and the Mueller probe, but is the most scathing and the most brutal takedown of the Trump campaign's shared mission with Russia. I wonder if you could take us through that, where the findings are refuted by the Marco Rubio-led Senate Intelligence Committee and the Durham-led probe into the Russia investigation itself.
Yeah, I mean, the Senate Intelligence Committee spent about 2 years investigating Russia's interference in the election and really had a lot more time, frankly, to digest the intelligence and the information than the intelligence community had when they were trying to assess practically in real time what Russia was doing. Their report is 1,300 pages long. They interviewed Director Brennan, Director Comey, Director Clapper, others. They interviewed all the analysts who wrote the assessment that John Ratcliffe has now ordered this review of. And it absolutely confirms, just as Andrew said, what the bottom line assessment was back in 2016. The Russians interfered in the election. They did it through placing divisive social media, through hacking Democratic emails and leaking them through intermediaries. They intended to denigrate Hillary Clinton in order to help Donald Trump. And, you know, it's important to note, too, the Senate Intelligence Committee had access to the highly classified information that some of these findings, or really all of these findings, were based on, that the CIA had, that the NSA also had, and the FBI. They reviewed all the work and they came to the same conclusion. And you can go read it for yourself. I mean, this report is public, and you can go find the sections that are of interest to you and walk through it chapter and verse. You know, the Durham report is also notable. And in my story, I have a letter that Clapper and Brennan's lawyer sent to John Durham after they'd given their long interviews, essentially laying out for the record, right, here's everything my clients told you about their role in crafting the assessment, what they did do, what they did not do, importantly. And there was a lot of expectation at the time that John Durham was reviewing how the FBI had conducted its investigation into the Russia probe, that he was going to come up with some evidence that intelligence officials had somehow skewed this or maybe cooked things up or were framing it to make it look worse for Donald Trump or allege associations that weren't there. And he didn't find that. He just didn't come up with anything like that. And he ultimately did not dispute in any way the original election interference assessment. So I think, you know, the Durham report is notable for everything he did review. And to be clear, he took a lot of issue with the way the FBI conducted their investigation, but it's notable for what he did not find. He did not find the kind of malfeasance by intelligence leaders that the current CIA director, John Ratcliffe, is now alleging, and claims that this Tradecraft review shows, when it very obviously does not.
So how do we arrive at this point? I guess I'll let you try to answer this, Andrew Weissmann, where a criminal investigation has been confirmed to be underway into John Brennan and Jim Comey over the Russia probe.
Well, John Brennan said something in the clip you played where he said, it's not usual to have this sort of leak happen. That's an understatement. And I think that viewers can take from that what is going on here. Obviously, that leak is not coming from Jim Comey or John Brennan. And so you have to ask yourself, why would they be doing that? When you're in the Department of Justice, it is the rule is sort of put up or shut up. It is like you either, indict somebody or you're not supposed to have them subjected to the public opprobrium of a criminal investigation. So this, to me, sort of reeks of a distraction, a sort of like look over here at the birdie. And don't look at other things. It's also notable if you're thinking about sort of what's going on. There is normally a 5-year statute of limitations to bring a criminal case. My first reaction to this was, excuse me? I mean, not only is there nothing I know that would suggest there should be a criminal investigation, but of course, as you noted, we don't obviously know everything that would be within the department. So giving them the benefit of the doubt, I don't think they deserve it. But let's say we do that. It's still totally unclear how they're going to have a criminal investigation if what they're looking at is something that happened in 2016. That is not something within a 5-year statute of limitations. I don't do math publicly, but even I can do that math.